95.
Very good. So tell me what room we have to borrow. We have borrowed over 100% of our revenue. We have no more room. So when you are saying we are going to borrow, refinance, that's the panic you're now seeing in the market. That's the panic. So where is government going to get this revenue? Are they going to raise taxes in the proposed budget coming? We are already at what you call diminishing returns on tax collections. How much more are you going to squeeze us? They will not raise that revenue. Now, what is illustrative is something that is not being talked about enough. The danger of debt default. Okay? When you start seeing a government struggling with paying salaries, Eric, as you mentioned, you've seen some of the government's people on television talking about the balance between debt and salaries. What are the priorities? We are tethering on what is called debt default. And I think Kenyans need to understand what that means to our lives. Ghana recently, December, went through a modicum of debt default. They could not meet their debt obligations. So what did Ghana do? They went to the IMF. And the IMF told them, before we look at you dealing with your debts, the sovereign in your country must understand and feel the pain first. Yes, city. So Ghana calls in their bonds and says, now, if you have a bond of 10,000 shillings, you now take it at a discounted rate of 30%. So it shelves off
people who had lent it domestically.
Yes,
basically
it shelves off 3,000 shillings and says 7,000 is yours. Now this 3,000, come back for it in 3 years. The next 3 years is 0% interest, but in 3 years you come, we give you 3%. But it didn't stop there. They went to bank accounts because the threat of banks collapsing is huge. So they come to your bank account. They raid your current account. They do the same thing. Here they will raid your mpesa and do the same thing.
What is raiding and doing the same thing? What does that mean?
It means that if you have a deposit in your mpesa of 10,000 shillings, they will take 30%. And you then have 7,000.
So your balance,
if you have a current account,
your balance suddenly becomes 7,000.
Becomes 7,000. Who is the sovereign?
It's you, the citizen.
How do you starve off a bank collapse?
You detain the cash.
You detain the cash. And that is coming to this country. That is our best case scenario.
That is our best
case scenario.
Right, I'm waiting for
But what has it happened? What has happened to Ghana in 4 months? You've had an inflation rate that went from 12% to 45%.
Yeah.
So even whatever money you have left has become half its value on the market.
Right.
All right?
Purchasing power.
The 7,000 that was left on M-Pesa is now worth 3,000.
3,000.
Yes.
This is where we are headed. And that is our best case scenario. If you see Greece, if you remember the issue of Greece, they closed the banks.
Literally.
For
with
4
people's
years.
deposit.
Your money was locked up.
Yeah.
Lebanon, they are still closed. And the currency has lost 90% of its value. Lebanon is still closed from 2019. Banks are closed. You're told, we'll give you a little stipend every month for you to try and exist, of money that is yours in your bank account. So our best case scenario is the Ghanaian situation. This is a reality to our lives going forward. And what are the implications of this? The implications mean that you cannot have the life that we are living today. However much we are struggling, this struggle will pale in comparison to what is coming. What does it mean in terms of jobs, confidence, salaries, and so on and so forth? This is where we are headed. And this is what we were trying to articulate last year when we did this audit. This audit was an analysis of our debt and the fact that it is going to choke us. Next year's repayments in the next financial year are also 1.4 trillion. Where is this revenue coming from? The following year, our repayments are 1.6 trillion. They keep increasing. I've seen some people say we have 2 years to recover the economy. We will not recover. As long as that burden is on us, there's nothing called recovery here. Because what are we going to do to commensurately produce the income to deal with that debt?
And is that not the solution that we're saying needs to happen? Because right now, I mean, just look at the way things are. Kenya, as an economy, is not producing, because we're saying that the steps towards development means that you for yourself as an entity, as a sovereign entity, are manufacturing.